If you're a federal worker, you're supposed to be protected if you get hurt on the job, right? So what happens when the very system designed to help you feels like it's actually designed to fight you? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the Office of Workers' Compensation Programs, or OWCP, and figure out why so many legitimate claims are getting shot down.
This quote just hits the nail on the head. For so many federal employees, this whole process feels less like a support system and more like a battle. It's that feeling of constantly being doubted, of having to prove everything, as if the default answer is always going to be no.
So that's the big question, isn't it? What is actually going on inside OWCP that leads to so much pain and frustration? In this explainer, we're going to break down the tactics they use, get to the real root of the problem, and, most importantly, show you exactly how to fight back.
Okay, so to really get what's going on, you have to understand their playbook. It turns out OWCP claims examiners often rely on a specific set of moves to deny claims, even when a worker's case looks totally solid.
So get this, the number one reason your claim might get denied often has nothing to do with your injury itself. It's about your doctor's paperwork. It's a really clever way to shift the blame. OWC isn't saying you're not hurt. They're saying your doctor just didn't explain it in the super specific technical way they demand.
So what in the world is medical rationale? Well, it's not a standard medical term you'd hear anywhere else. It's an internal OWCP standard, and it basically requires your doctor to connect every single dot between your job and your injury. The problem is it's a moving target, which makes it incredibly easy for them to just say, nope, lacks rationale, and dismiss a totally valid medical opinion.
And here's a perfect example of how this works. Your doctor, just using normal medical language, might write that your job may have or could have led to your condition. To you and me, that makes sense. But to OWCP, those are red flags. They will often stamp the whole report as speculative and deny the claim right there.
So it all kind of boils down to these 4 core tactics. You've got the medical rationale trap. Then they'll discount a specialist report over some tiny detail. They might rush you to a second opinion with their own doctor. And then there's a big one, blaming everything on a pre-existing condition.
Now, this is absolutely crucial to understand. The law that governs all this, the Federal Employees Compensation Act, or FECA, has something called a no apportionment rule. It's really simple. If your job makes a pre-existing condition even a tiny bit worse, the law says the entire disability that results from that is covered. You can't split the blame.
But here's the kicker. In the real world, OWCP seems to ignore this rule all the time. An examiner sees degenerative disc disease or arthritis on a report, and it's like a magic word for them to deny the claim. They'll just say, oh, that's just old age, completely ignoring the law that says if work made it worse, it's covered. Okay, so we've seen the tactics, but why are they so common? This isn't just about a few bad apples. The real problem seems to be a systemic failure that goes right to the very top.
When you dig into it, the core issue appears to be a total leadership vacuum inside the agency. Without stable, consistent leadership, you get chaos, and that chaos leads to these inconsistent and often really unfair decisions.
And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. This is right from the Department of Labor's own website. The director position for OWCP officially listed as vacant. When there's no one in charge setting a clear, fair standard, the examiners are left to their own devices, and it seems many just default to denial.
And this lack of leadership, this whole broken system, it has real-world consequences. We're not just talking about annoying paperwork. These tactics and delays have a severe, devastating impact on the health, the finances, and the lives of injured workers.
This one just breaks your heart because it's so common. People feel like they're in a war of attrition. It feels like the system is purposefully designed to frustrate you and wear you down until you just give up. And we have to be crystal clear about this. These delays aren't harmless. When a claim is stuck in limbo, you can't get approval for an MRI or to see a specialist or to get surgery. That means a small injury can turn into a huge one. A treatable problem can become a permanent disability, all while you're waiting on a bureaucrat. To put that into perspective, people in other OWCP programs have had to wait over 90 days just to get approval for critical medical care. Can you imagine? That's 3 months of being in pain, 3 months of a condition getting worse because of a paperwork delay. And then there's the psychological toll. You finally get a letter from them, and it's this long, intimidating document full of legal jargon you can't possibly understand. Of course people panic. They lose hope. And a lot of them just walk away from perfectly valid claims because the process itself is just too overwhelming.
Look, it's a deeply flawed system. No doubt about it. But, and this is a big but, You are not powerless. Now that you know their playbook, you can create a counter playbook. There are clear steps you can take to build a winning claim right from the start.
So here's your game plan. First, do not try to navigate this maze by yourself. Second, and this is probably the most important part, you have to find a doctor who actually gets the Department of Labor's very specific rules. And third, you use that expertise to build an airtight case from day one.
Your family doctor is probably fantastic, but they almost certainly don't speak OWCP's secret language. A specialized provider does. They know not to use words like maybe. They know how to correctly explain the aggravation of a degenerative condition. They know exactly how to write that medical rationale that satisfies the examiners. They basically build you a bulletproof report.
Honestly, it all boils down to this. In a system that's all about nitpicking paperwork, having an expert on your side who knows the rules of the game, well, that can be the single thing that makes or breaks your entire claim.
See, the power really comes from understanding their game. Once you know their tactics, their obsession with rational, their trick of using the degenerative excuse, you and your doctor can get ahead of it. You can give them exactly what they need, leaving them no wiggle room to say no.
So I'll just leave you with this question. The system is tough. It is absolutely designed to wear you down. But now you know the playbook. Now you're armed with knowledge. So the real question is, with the right team in your corner, are you going to let it win?